The IDF is targeting Hamas leadership. Is Hamas prepared for the IDF's new precise tactic? Both the IDF and Hamas confirm a central terrorist was eliminated while hiding in the Khan Yunis hospital in the last 24 hours, and we can now confirm that it was Hamas's prime minister who was just appointed 5 days ago to replace his predecessor, who was also terminated. The head of Hamas's finance department was also eliminated, while the IDF and the Shin Bet confirmed the elimination of a deputy brigade commander, a battalion commander in Hamas organization, as well as another senior official in the political bureau. And after a few hours, the deputy Gaza brigade commander and the Sajaiya battalion commander were also terminated. All this was done from the air, while Division 36 of the IDF is preparing for a ground maneuver into the Gaza Strip. And at the same time, Israel is also going after Hamas finances and preparing to adopt various tactics in the Gaza Strip that will include greater military control, evacuation and blockade, and examination of all humanitarian aid entering the Strip. This comes after the establishment today of a committee that will discuss the evacuation of Gazan residents from the Gaza Strip. And in related news, United States Special Envoy Steve Witkoff presents a surprising stance regarding Hamas's future, but Hamas is refusing to even discuss the new plans, so the IDF is preparing to open the gates of hell even wider. And meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke with United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who expressed unwavering American support, and Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said, "I instructed the IDF to seize more territory and evacuate the population if Hamas continues to refuse to release the hostages." Hamas, for its part, simply says that they are continuing negotiations. And we also look north and ask ourselves why the Lebanese government isn't protesting much as Israel bombs Hezbollah targets all over their country. The reason is surprising. Israel is changing the face of Lebanon. If not for our war against Hezbollah, its opponents would not dare raise their heads. And meanwhile, Hezbollah operatives disguise themselves as civilians and return to villages on the border with Israel. And hovering above all of this is the question of what will happen next in Iran. Is the Islamic Republic of Iran on the brink of an explosion amidst its historic low point? We'll also talk about the incredible response it has given to an ultimatum by the United States President Donald Trump, essentially saying that if the United States wants to talk to Iran about nuclear issues, Washington will need to change its tone. This came in response to a recent letter that Trump sent to Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in which he warned that there are two ways to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons: an agreement or a military option. And according to reports, he indicated a 2-month deadline to reach a nuclear agreement. Now, Iranian Foreign Minister Arakshi, apparently obvious to the weakness of his country's position, had said that only if Trump changes his pressure policy is there is a chance for negotiations. And Special Envoy Witkoff said regarding Iran, it will not have a nuclear bomb. Period. But despite all of its internal difficulties and external pressure, Iran is preparing for an attack and revealing new weapons with the stated aim to destroy any target at the distance of 600 kilometers, while making all kinds of rhetorical threats towards Israel and the United States. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on day 535 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region that are operating under the command of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps in Iran, which is the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. And a moment before we begin, I want to invite you to click the subscribe button so that you remain tuned to the truth in real time and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. And 5 days since the renewal of hostilities in the Gaza Strip, the IDF has eliminated 4 senior members of Hamas's political wing against the backdrop of negotiations that currently appear to be stalled due to the maximalist demands that Hamas insists on making. Hamas issued a statement on Sunday evening saying that the IDF assassinated Hamas political bureau member Ismail Barhoum after blowing up the operating room in the Nasser hospital where he was receiving treatment for severe injuries he suffered in an attack a week ago. And meanwhile, the IDF and the Shin Bet confirmed last night that they carried out a targeted strike against a key operative in the Hamas terrorist organization who was in the vicinity of the Nasser hospital. The strike was carried out following extensive intelligence work and using precise munitions intended to reduce collateral damage as much as possible. The IDF emphasized that the Hamas terrorist organization uses civilian infrastructure, cruelly endangering the Gaza population. The cynical use of an active hospital as a hideout for planning and carrying out murderous terror activities is absolutely contrary to international law. The IDF and the Shin Bet will continue to act against the Hamas terrorist organization and remove any threat to the citizens of the State of Israel. And earlier, the IDF and the Shin Bet announced the elimination of two senior Hamas officials, Ahmed Salman Shamaili, deputy commander of the Gaza Brigade, and Jamil Amra Awadi, the Sajaiya battalion commander. The two were eliminated by airstrikes with Shin Bet intelligence guidance. Before that, the IDF and the Shin Bet confirmed that Salah el-Bardawil, a senior official in Hamas's political bureau who led the organization's strategic and military planning, was eliminated 2 days ago with a strike in Khan Yunis. All of this was accomplished using precision airstrikes. Now, let's talk about what's been accomplished by the so far limited IDF ground incursion into the Gaza Strip. On Sunday evening, the IDF announced that Division 36, the largest armored division in the IDF, is preparing for deployment into the Gaza Strip. Its leading force, the Golani Brigade, has already moved up in recent days, and yesterday, the 7th and 188th Armored Brigades, an engineering battalion, and an artillery brigade also arrived. The presence of the division alongside the line that is inside the Gaza Strip and around it constitute a large and powerful buildup of force. And the question is whether Hamas will understand that Israel is determined to carry out a large-scale ground incursion if the hostages are not released soon. IDF forces continue operating yesterday in the Bet Hanun area in the northern Gaza Strip and allowed civilians to evacuate from the combat zone for their safety. Israeli airstrikes on Hamas infrastructure in the area were also carried out. And at this time, the IDF is carrying out a gradual and measured operation. It should be said that in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, the forces are stationed at the entrance to Bet Lahia near Jabalia. There are forces along the coastline as well as in part of the Netzarim corridor. In the south, the IDF forces have completed the mission of retaking positions inside a ruined neighborhood in Rafah, and they also carried out an encirclement of the Tel El Sultan neighborhood in the city. And in parallel to all of this, the IDF and the Shin Bet have been operating at an accelerated pace since last week, carrying out dozens of targeted assassinations, and this policy operates on 3 levels. The first is the senior governing and the defensive leadership of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The second level is the mid-level command structure of Hamas, including company and battalion commanders, and the third level is rank-and-file operatives. The objective is to sow confusion and chaos within Hamas and thus increase the pressure. So far, Hamas is not blinking. The talks have not resumed and there is no plan on the table to be discussed. However, the IDF and the Shin Bet see that the pressure is indeed affecting Gazan residents who are unhappy about the return to fighting and about the fact that they are required to move to humanitarian areas once more. And another factor weighing on the minds of Israel's leadership is the situation on other fronts. This is including the northern border, where rockets were fired at Israel from Lebanese territory over the weekend, prompting a massive retaliatory airstrike by the Israeli Air Force. Hezbollah was quick to back down in the face of these strikes, announcing that they are not interested in renewed war with Israel at this point. And nonetheless, fire from Yemen is certainly troubling, but Israel is encouraged by the Americans' activity, which is succeeding in striking the Houthi leadership and their headquarters. At this stage, Israel prefers to leave dealing with the Houthis to the Americans. This leaves Israel to face the problems coming from Hamas in the Gaza Strip with a relatively free hand. And a moment before we move on to the diplomatic actions taking place in parallel with the fighting in the Gaza Strip, while the IDF is working hard to dismantle the Hamas terrorist organization, I want to ask you to continue spreading the truth. Share our videos on YouTube, follow us on social media, and most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Israel plans to adopt a new and more aggressive tactic in the Gaza Strip, which will include direct military control of humanitarian assistance, a more significant blow to Hamas's civilian leadership, and evacuating civilians into humanitarian bubbles while imposing a blockade on the areas left behind. This is according to current and former Israeli sources cited in the report. This is a more intensive vision of the tactics deployed last year in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. And however, Israeli sources emphasize that they are still awaiting the results of the current ceasefire talks, and no final decisions have been made about escalating the current offensive, which has so far focused mainly on aerial bombings. And speaking of diplomacy, the Prime Minister's office announced on Sunday evening that Benjamin Netanyahu had spoken with United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio. In the conversation, the two discussed regional developments, primarily the issue of releasing the hostages and the resumption of fighting in the Gaza Strip. And according to the official statement, Secretary of State Rubio expressed unwavering support of the United States for Israel and its policy. This statement comes as a significant moment as Israel prepares to escalate its military campaign in the Gaza Strip. And elsewhere, a source in one of the mediating countries familiar with the negotiations said that Hamas cut off contact and halted the talks on a hostage deal after Israel's strikes in the Gaza Strip. And according to that source, even talks about a small phase of hostage releases have stopped, and Hamas insists on returning to the original agreement signed slightly more than 2 months ago. The statements of that source were made against the backdrop of Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz's optimistic remarks last Thursday after Israel's strikes in the Gaza Strip that Israel already sees a change in Hamas's position. In the midst of the security assessment he held with the Chief of Staff, Katz declared that we can already see that the military pressure is influencing Hamas's position. We will not stop until the hostages are released. If Hamas continues to refuse to release the hostages, I have instructed the IDF to seize additional territory while evacuating the population and to expand the security zones around Gaza for the benefit of defending Israeli communities and IDF soldiers by permanently holding the area by Israel. The more Hamas continues in its refusal, the more territory it will lose that will be annexed into Israel. While all of this was going on, Arab media portals have reported that United Arab Emirates President Mohammed bin Zayed conveyed a message from the United States to Egyptian President el-Sisi. The message was passed on to the Egyptian president during a meeting between the two in Cairo after the United Arab Emirates president recently visited the White House and met with President Trump. The event took place against the backdrop of Trump's pressure on the issue of Gazans' immigration. According to an Egyptian source, the country recently received American messages indicating that transferring part of the Gazan population to Egypt would lead to economic packages for the country of Egypt. And alongside these messages, the United States again made it clear that economic aid would be re-examined if no agreement is reached on the matter. And according to estimates, the United States is currently dealing with transferring 500 to 700,000 Gazans into Egypt. And during meetings recently held in Riyadh and Doha, a dramatic proposal was raised by the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi for the temporary evacuation of 500,000 Palestinians from the Gaza Strip to a designated city in northern Sinai, as reported last week by the Lebanese newspaper El-Akbar. According to senior Arab diplomatic sources, participants in these meetings were exposed to the new Egyptian position, and according to which Cairo is willing to assist in the process of rebuilding Gaza by opening borders to residents of the Gaza Strip that are interested in voluntarily departure. This proposal presents a significant turnaround in Egypt's stance, which until recently firmly opposed plans to evacuate Gaza residents. The deep change in Egypt's approach occurred against the backdrop of discussions about a possible renewal of fighting in Gaza and its expansion to additional fronts focusing on Yemen and Iran. El-Sisi's proposal has sparked concerns amongst the Jordanian side, which expressed limited willingness to help host refugees but stressed that this would only apply to families of the wounded and for a limited period. For Israel's part, the Political Security Cabinet held a meeting on Saturday evening in which it approved the proposal of Defense Minister Katz to establish a voluntary departure administration for Gaza residents who express interest in relocating to third countries. Of course, this plan is subject to the provisions of Israel and international law and in accordance with President Trump's vision. The administration in the Defense Ministry will be subordinate to its operations to the Defense Minister and will be authorized to act in coordination with international organizations and other relevant parties. In accordance with the political echelon's directives, the administration in the Defense Ministry will be subordinate in its operations to the Defense Minister and will be authorized to act in coordination with international organizations and other relevant parties in accordance with the political echelon's directives and will coordinate the activities of all the relevant government ministries. Guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development regarding this matter and the progress in the war against Hamas. So please continue to spread the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, do not forget to click the subscribe button. Unfortunately, in Israel, emergencies can happen anytime. Magen David Adom works tirelessly to prepare for any situation, ensuring the safety and the well-being of communities across the country of Israel. For example, recently a bulletproof ambulance was inaugurated in Bet Aryeh, which is a community in the Shomron region. This new addition allows Magen David Adom teams to provide rapid and secure medical assistance even in high-risk areas. It's a critical upgrade that will save lives in moments when every second counts. This achievement was made possible through generous donations, showing just how vital community support is in strengthening Magen David Adom's readiness. But maintaining and expanding such essential services requires ongoing help. Your support ensures Magen David Adom has the ambulances, the medical supplies, and the trained responders needed to stay prepared for the next emergency. Together, we can make a difference. So visit SaveLifeIsrael.com to support Magen David Adom and save lives in Israel. Now, back to the news, and we're switching our focus to Israel's northern border with Lebanon to tell you more about the flare-up in that location over the weekend. Although Hezbollah denied its involvement in Saturday's rocket fire towards Metula, it appears not to be giving up its hold in southern Lebanon. Despite the damage it sustained during the war and the loss of a significant portion of its senior commanders, it is currently making an effort to renew its presence along the border with Israel. It is important to understand that under the cover of the Lebanese citizens' desire to return to their villages in southern Lebanon, Hezbollah has set its sights on drawing closer to the border with Israel and integrating into the population. However, in many cases, Lebanese civilians have nothing to return to as their homes and their businesses were destroyed during the recent fightings and the ability to rebuild is very limited. Despite the severe blows suffered by Hezbollah and Hamas, Tehran continues to view them as one strategic network and acts to strengthen cooperation between them, especially in light of the renewed fighting in the Gaza Strip. In doing so, Iran is completely ignoring the internationally recognized government of Lebanon and the Lebanese people that it represents. Lebanon's new president, Joseph Aoun, was elected by broad consensus and managed to form a governing coalition. In the new government under Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, the Shiites received only 4 relatively margined portfolios. This is a sign of Hezbollah's weakened position and its loss of power in the Lebanese government. Despite these encouraging signs and the heavy damage that Hezbollah sustained in the war, particularly the Radwan unit and the offensive plan for the Galilee, the Hezbollah problem remains and continues to threaten Israel. Hezbollah still possesses rocket launching forces and the ability to carry out attacks against Israel. The immediate threat to communities in the north have also decreased, but the long-term strategic danger remains as potent as ever. That's because Hezbollah is merely a puppet of the much more powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps in Iran. Here at TBN Israel, we work hard to bring you the truth about what's going on in Israel. So we ask you to pray for the situation that you hear in these reports. Pray for the soldiers of the IDF that are defending this country on multiple fronts. Pray for the hostages. Pray for the citizens, for the civilians of all these regions, if it's the Gazans in the Gaza Strip, if it's the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria, if it's the Israelis all across Israel, if it's the Syrians, if it's the Lebanese people, or if it's the people in Yemen that are suffering because of the Houthis and because of all the other terrorist organizations. We need prayers. I believe and I know that prayers work. So unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem. Through the support of partners like you, TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news and what God is doing in this land. Please visit TBN Israel online today at tbn.org/Israel.